Joel Turner.
So Joel, he has more steps in his process, but each of those steps is meant to keep you right in the moment. Like, all right, well, this worked for that guy. I'm gonna try and it didn't work for me. Well, I must be messed up or I must be broken. Like, no, just try something that works for your brain. The one thought that's holding them back the most. Especially with guys, that may be the hardest part because we cut ourselves off from the neck down.
All right. What's up, good people? My name is William Alderman, for those that don't know, which is most of you. But for those that will click on this video, I did want to add some value to some of the things that I've been learning along the way on YouTube. And I try not to act like I know all the answers. I definitely like to, as we've talked about before, I like to steal as much counsel as I can. And so he was just willing to give it. So at that point, I do want to introduce you guys to Trey Tucker. He actually works at my school as a, not therapist, almost a therapist.
We call it counselor at the school because we don't want it to be all official and medically, you know?
Oh, see, that makes sense. I've always wondered, so like, how do they draw those lines? Like, is there any real line being drawn, or is it just vocabulary?
The same thing. If you want to sound fancier, you call yourself a therapist. If you want to sound more down to earth, I'm just a counselor, you know?
Okay, cool. But the reason why he's here is going to be touching, obviously the reason why you clicked on it is going to be talking about the mental game, something that we're going to talk a little bit more about. But before we get there, when it comes down to the mental game inside of archery, I just wanted to introduce you guys to him and kind of let him introduce you guys of why he would even be valid or able to speak on it. I think a lot of people like to talk about their mental game and like to talk about the things that they take a lot of pride in without actually having any history. I mean, they could be 3 years into shooting and then they're like, this is how I do with my mental game. But just like a lot of guys get into the Joel Turner side of things, well, what does the science say? I wanted to bring an actual guy that's actually studied the stuff. I actually read the books on how the brain works and how to deal with high pressure situations, and then being able to work through those high pressure situations, especially with something as precise as archery. But again, before we get there, plenty of other things to talk about. So yeah, can you qualify yourself for me?
Tell why I know what I'm talking about.
Exactly. Like where did all this stem from for you?
I just watched a video and now I know everything. Right?
See, YouTube University. You guys, you're welcome.
No, so I think the short version is I always had an interest in doing this, and then I did other things in different careers, marketing, teaching, coaching, and then I looked back, I'm like, I've been doing the psychology thing the whole time. I just didn't have some official degree behind it. So then I thought, all right, people keep bringing me real life problems, and I don't really have quite the qualifications to tell them, here's actually a game plan to deal with what you're dealing with. So that's why I went back and got a master's mid-career. Kind of switched on a dime, and it took 5 years. So
really,
those masters are no joke, as you know.
Yeah. I was like, I know some guys that have gone back and got them in like 4 to 3. Is that a normal stint for psychology? And I assume it's in psychology, the master's in psychology.
Yeah, I mean, technically it's professional counseling because there's like probably 7 or 8 different masters you could get. But yeah, so I got that. There's the degree phase. There's the internship phase. There's a bunch of tests you got to pass. So it was about to drive me crazy. So, but finally got it, and then
congratulations. That's
thanks.
Awesome.
But then from that point on, it was so fun because I got to deal with a variety of different issues and different types of people, and I just didn't want to narrow myself into one particular issue. Some therapists like to be like, I'm anxiety only, or I'm trauma only. I love the variety, like you. I mean, you look around your space here, like this is the representation of your personality.
Well,
all
thank
in one
you.
room.
I appreciate it. You're right. I've never thought about that.
Yeah,
it definitely does. Just to pause there, so that context makes sense. This is my garage. I am extremely fortunate to have what I have in here. But he's just talking about the gym, and it also has my workspace and things that I get to build and work on. So that's all that side nugget is. But obviously, going back to the main topic at hand, so doing that mid-career, that's a lot, especially to be able to commit 5 years to something while still working, because you still got bills to pay. It's not like all of that just disappeared. Like how did you deal with managing all of that at the same time?
Sometimes not so well. I remember there was a phase, probably the last 6 months of the degree, where I knew something had to give. So I had I had so many projects and papers due for grad school.
Yes.
I had tons of work responsibilities. Other parts of life had gotten crazy, and I was like, all right, I'm either gonna have to sleep 3 hours a night, or I'm gonna have to give up something. So I gave up working out for about 6 months.
You?
Me, Mr.
No
Addicted
way.
here, exactly.
There's no way. So, so
Little context.
This is awesome. Like, this is really cool to hear. So, like, when you guys think that you work out, like, a lot, you don't. Like, this guy right here. So, you guys know a little bit about my history, or anybody that's maybe followed my story. I believe in working out. I believe in fitness. That is actually my career. It's in the fitness industry. And I am actually one of the strength coaches at the school that both of us work at. Yep. With that being said, the reason why I even know him is not because I just ended up in the school counseling office. It's because he is always in our weight room. Like, I say our, like literally our weight room at this point, because he's just always in there going to work. He'll be in there before I get there sometimes. I'm just like, bro, like, thanks for making me feel like I don't work out. And then he's like, bro, I got to build this. And I'm looking at him in his shirts and I'm like, there's nothing else. Like, you've sucked everything out of your body. Like, geez Louise, leave some of these weights for the rest of us.
Whatever.
So for him to give it up for 6 months is crazy. I think some people will willingly just give it up. That is a big ask for Trey. Like, he's been on big vacations and still he'll come back and be like, yeah, man, I could only work out this much. Didn't even give me any other highlights of anything else, but be like, man, nah, I just try to figure it out. My back's hurting, but like, I still was able to do this. We were actually supposed to work out today. And he shows up and he's like walking normal while still trying to figure out how to breathe. And he's just like, man, I know I threw my back out, but we could still do this. I'm like, dude, look at how I'm dressed. Like, no, we're not working out. It's okay. Like, we'll be okay.
There's a pull-up bar. I don't know if y'all can see it. There's a pull-up bar right there. I just want to do some pull-ups, but he won't let me.
No, there's no reason to hurt him. So all that to say, for him to say that he's giving up 6 months is crazy. Like, that's a huge deal.
Yeah.
And
it probably shows some OCD on my part
hey, that's okay. That's beautiful.
You got to be obsessed with something, right?
I agree. If there's something to be obsessed with, I think that's it.
And by the way, I'm not real excited about sitting this close to you because the comparison of size just makes me look like a kindergartner. So,
oh my gosh.
I've heard Arnold Schwarzenegger get interviewed, and he'll talk about he'll say, I don't stand next to people who are like taller than me for more than 30 seconds because I don't want that comparison. It's like, I'm moving on.
No way. Are you serious?
So I'm like, how soon can I like stand up and make
God. That is hilarious. That is hilarious. Oh my goodness gracious. So like going into this field, obviously you've made some impacts. So Trey is more than just a school counselor as well. Like, this guy has taken what he's known and learned along the years inside of academia, but also in your actual practice of counseling people and being around others, and repackaged that and rebranded it in a lot of ways inside of social media. That's through your not Twitter, but goodness gracious,
TikTok,
Instagram. What are some other Instagram? And I also know you're building a lot of your YouTube stuff now.
Right.
And then he's also putting out a awesome book that he's been doing some highlights to, and actually doing a podcast. So if you haven't had the chance or haven't run by it, it's called Rugged. It is highlighted on YouTube. Is it actually highlighted on any of the other platforms, or just through YouTube right now?
Yeah, I'll put clips and things, shorter clips on Instagram and TikTok and all that, and on YouTube Shorts. But yeah, it's still in the infancy phase. This was my first guest, by the way.
Hey.
So he kicked us off.
No, that was also like super fortunate to be a part of. But like, there are some guys that you've actually had on that, from like an athletic standpoint, that I think was really, really cool, really awesome, with Finley, and then Hendrickson, the wrestler.
Hendrickson, Torres Finney.
Yeah, like those guys, obviously high level guys. Like, I want to get the deets in regards to, because I can listen to some of the podcasts, but like, how did these relationships come to be? If I can get that side, and then I want to get to some of the things you might have learned from them, from their mental side of dealing with stress and things like that as well.
So the relationships came to be kind of the same way a lot of these guys have come to be in connection with me. Like, for whatever reason, my videos will come up on certain athletes' feeds. Whether
Really?
it's like I had a couple of college quarterbacks reach out a few years ago, and it kind of built from there. Where like I'm talking like SEC quarterbacks, and they're just wanting help with mindset, because a lot of times whatever the university would provide, they're kind of more, I don't know, what you would call standard therapist, more in a medical angle. And I guess they see, a guy that sort of seems athletic enough to understand what they're going through. So it's been awesome to just connect with athletes, whether it's, I've worked with football players, baseball players, some wrestlers, maybe a golfer or two, something like that. So, with that kind of confidence, I was like, okay, well, I can start reaching out to some of these guys that I want to interview. So I reached out to Wyatt and a couple other people, and then Finney, we have mutual friends, so I just asked through him, because he's a Chattanooga guy.
Yeah.
So I just asked, like, hey, would he be able to come on? So that's why I got him in person.
Holy crap!
Yeah.
Dude.
So that's how I'll keep trying to do it too with future guests. Just reach out and say, hey, look, here's what I do. Here's what the information I'm trying to put out there.
Yeah.
And both of them were like, yes, because the interviews they normally do, it's only about the actual physical movements in their sport.
Okay.
Usually nobody asks them about mindset and the broader impact, and they're excited. Guys like that are excited to show you what their actual thought training is, and then be able to say that, because they don't really get that chance very often.
Dude, that is really, really cool to hear. I think, because obviously I told you I've been hesitant on I keep on messing up his last name, but
Finney.
Finney.
Oh yeah,
no, not
Henderson.
Finney,
Henderson. Yep.
Henderson. I want to, I'm so excited now that we finally get the time to sit down.
Yes, sir.
But just like listening to the Finney one and just seeing like his dedication to his craft, just the willing to just buy into something in full send. Was there anything that kind of stood out to you while you were listening to him that you were like, oh, I want to keep this for my practice and share this with other athletes especially?
Yeah.
Was there anything like that when you were watching him that kind of highlights?
The question or the answer that he gave to my question that surprised me, that my question was, because he went to Air Force and then transferred to Oklahoma State.
Yep.
I asked him, okay, so how did your time at Air Force, I just assumed that his time at Air Force helped him with wrestling. I said, how did your time at Air Force prepare you to be a better wrestler and to win this championship that he just won?
Yeah.
And he goes, actually, it's the opposite. He said, my wrestling career in high school helped me to actually be a better Air Force guy. So in other words, he said the wrestling was harder than the Air Force. So
Very interesting.
It's like, okay, I guess the wrestling is that tough,
Yes.
Even compared to being an Air Force cadet. And so I thought, wow, all right. So what seemed hard to me was actually easier for him.
That's very, very interesting.
But he took that idea and he said, all right, if you had bulletproof glass, you would want to make sure that that glass could withstand any amount of force coming at you, right? So he says, I started training myself in such a way that no matter what got thrown at me, I was not gonna break. I made my training that difficult so that when I got into a match, even if I got tired, even if I got a move put on me that I wasn't familiar with, I at least could fall back on that training and know that the bulletproof glass that I had trained with and trained up is not gonna break. And I thought, man, I'm using that visual.
I love that. Now, from a side that makes sense to me from a physical side of things, and you've seen how we coach in the weight room, from like a psychological standpoint in regards to just the kind of combative, sometimes in your facing with a high schooler. But I'm struggling in some ways because I have my perceptions, but I'm struggling from like a bigger picture. What does that look like to you in your practice, like practically? How does that actually apply? Because I know, hey, we're going to train for the fifth quarter, right? In like a football vocabulary.
Right.
We're going to train for overtime in basketball, like, or whatever those things are. Those things make sense from like a practical, easy applied standpoint in those categories.
Right.
The brain is a little bit harder to map rather than, hey, if I'm trying to prepare for 12 reps, I'm going to be comfortable doing 15. Maybe I'm not going to go to 20 because it's too far out of the range, right? Because there's extremes on all ends of the spectrum.
Yep.
But going into the mental side of it, how do you ballpark that? How do you actually framework that out so it makes sense to the brain while overtraining to make your brain bulletproof?
Yeah. Talk, other people would just call it chatter in your head.
I like to talk about it like that.
Yeah. So I get to figure out like, okay, when you're held back or when you're scared or, whatever it is that you're trying to make sure you're busting through, like what does that voice sound like? Is it saying a certain thing? Is it just kind of cloudiness all over your head and you can't really figure out what it is? I'm able to figure out what is this wall that we're trying to bust through, and then we can take the training that you would do with them and say, all right, let's apply that confidence and those tools now to this specific wall.
Interesting. So how often do you find, because like in the complexity of the mind and the complexity in our human nature, the idea of one thing being the thing that needs to be pushed through, is that you simplifying it for the person, or do you tend to see, as somebody might say in like a relationship, that, oh man, I gotta work through this wall and now I gotta work through this wall? How much are you simplifying for our brain as the viewers versus sometime as the individual, you're actually gonna have to work through more than just the one thing?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
It's always gonna be more than one thing eventually, but if you try to say, all right, let's tackle the 10 things that are flying around your brain all at once, like, no.
Yeah, not good coaching. Not good coaching. Give too many cues, the brain shuts down and then they're just, you want me to put my hips back? My chest goes where? Wait, where are my feet supposed to be? My knees are supposed to do what? And they're just sitting there like this, and the whole set goes by, and you're like, why have you done nothing?
Like, I'm not gonna mess up. I'm just gonna stand here still.
Okay, so then at what point, how do you gauge the idea of moving on?
Yeah.
Because I know like movement efficiency, that's easy for me to see.
Yep.
Right? But like mentally, how do you see that? What are you looking for in that person? Because if I'm looking at it, to give an example, like, he just graduated, not to give any last names, but a guy that just graduated, I remember his freshman year, I remember looking at him doing conditioning and clearly beating himself up mentally and just trying to grit through it. And I remember having that conversation when you talk about the self-talk. So what are you saying to yourself right now? And he was one of the actual few students that actually gave an honest feedback. And he said, well, I'm saying I'm not sure if I can do this. And I'm not sure, like, this sucks, and I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can do this. And I was like, yeah, you need to flip that. And you need to start thinking this way. And that, as you said, very unified in the approach, because he was very honest and actually aware of what his voice was saying. I found that a lot of guys don't know what they're actually thinking, even though it's clear that they're thinking a lot of things.
Oh, yeah, they don't know it though, but it's
and working through all of those things. So like, but like in your field, like when I think back on that, I don't know how to assess that other than some of it feels more confident, right? Some of it just feels more confident. Like, are there tangible things you're looking for inside of your approach when you're counseling or when they're giving you feedback? Because it's not like you're showing up to all these athletes' events to see what they look like on the field.
No, I can't.
Like, what are you listening for? What are you looking for?
Yeah, well, let's take, if that guy that you're talking about had come in to see me after he finished his workout. And he said, hey, let's work on this, where I feel like, what did he say? I feel like I can't do it.
He's like, man, just a lack of belief, honestly, is what it boiled down to. But like, it was too hard. Like, he's never tapped into what we were asking of him physically. Yeah. And it was just like, I don't think I can do this. And I just don't think I can. It wasn't like a lack of want. It was just a lack of belief that there was the ability to.
Okay. So let's pretend he comes into my office with that issue. I doubt myself. I don't know that I can do this. One thing I'll ask is, okay, where do you feel that in your body? Now, you wouldn't do this in a coaching setting. You don't have time to. It's like, all right, breathe.
It's like, get under the weight and go to work. We don't have time.
So, but if he's sitting in an office, everything's calm. He doesn't have to worry about anything else. I'm asking, all right, you have the thought here, and anytime we have a thought that actually matters here, it's always going to show up in our body as well. So I'm going to ask him, all right, scan your body. Where do you feel that? Like when you doubt yourself and you feel like, oh shoot, I don't know if I can do this. That's gonna show up viscerally somewhere physically, and a lot of times it's in our chest or our stomach, stuff like that. So if I can help them identify that, which especially with guys, that may be the hardest part because we cut ourselves off from the neck down so much. We just live in our head, and we can't really clear out our junk unless we figure out what's going on and physically, because not to get too geeky with it, but
no, get geeky. We want it. I want it. Even if they don't, I want it. Feed me. This is for me. I told you I'm just stealing. Right. And then we're just pushing out everything else.
That's right. So emotions really, at the end of the day, are just chemicals. Whether it's a pleasant emotion like love or something like that, or something unpleasant like nervousness, it's just a chemical, and that chemical is running through your veins, and therefore you're going to feel a certain thing based on the chemical. So if we never check in with our body, those chemicals never get processed and actually get out. And eventually we get so clogged up that either we just get numb or have some sort of like a breakdown or an explosion. So the chemicals, the emotions are going to come out one way or another. It's just going to look different for whoever it is.
Interesting. Interesting. So these chemicals, so like, what is somebody doing to actually regulate and get rid of those things? Because you talked about identifying.
Right.
So that's number one, is what I've been gathering.
Yep.
So
identify.
then what's step two then of that process?
Step two is let that, assuming they can find wherever it is in the body.
Yeah.
I'll ask them to put words to it. Like, if it had a shape, what shape would it be?
Okay.
If it had a color, if it had a temperature, just get them to really tune into it so much that they can actually see it and really feel it. Because then, the way these chemicals work is once they know that you're paying attention to them, they tend to calm down. Like,
interesting.
Like,
so if you
anxiety.
put eyes on it,
yeah, if you put eyes on it, because they're trying to help.
Acting right.
Emotions are trying to help, even if they're not actually being helpful. They think they are. And if you take the word emotion and chop the E off of it, you have motion. They're trying to put you into some sort of motion. Like if it's anxiety, it's trying to get you to either fight the threat because it thinks something is dangerous.
That's the fight or flight response.
Exactly, flight, run away. So it's trying to put you either toward the threat or away from the threat.
But static is just not a thing.
Right. So if you ignore the emotion or try to get it to shut up, it's gonna get worse because it's like, no, I'm right. You have to listen.
Yeah.
And even if it's not right, you still have to tune in. Like, so how old is your daughter?
5.
So when she was really little and she was scared of something and she started crying, but you knew logically there was nothing to be afraid of.
Yes.
How did you handle that?
Well, I would handle it. Well, how much sleep did I get the night before?
Good question.
I handled it good and bad. Obviously, it's my story time, so I'm gonna give you the good one.
That's right.
My good response. Actually, I'll start with the bad. My bad response. Excuse me. My bad response, honestly, was more so like a clenching inside of my own spirit of just like, because it's a lack of me feeling like I could be the parent that I wanted to be because I'm not empowering you right now.
Yep.
And I'm just mad that you're even stuck on something that clearly is trivial in my eyes. Yeah. In my good times, I'm able to, what I would consider good anyways, because I see more positive results from. I'm not just saying it's good because of whatever. I actually see her work through it at that point.
Right.
Because usually when I would get anxious or whatever and get frustrated, usually it just causes her to clam up even more.
Yep.
But in those times where I can really take it, that's interesting you talk about identifying because I'm doing that. So I would be able to kind of take a deep breath and really figure out like what is it that she's actually scared of. And even in her younger brain, she can still, in some environments, not always, but in some of those times, whether it was jumping off and just trusting daddy. Hey, I'm here, trust me, I'm going to catch you. When I was able to be patient enough while finessing it with enough like urgency, so creating some time frame that was like, hey, when I get back, we're going to jump off. Or in 5 seconds, we're going to jump off. So it gave her a time frame to deal with it in. Yeah. So she knew that there was an end point. But then in my peaceful approach of like, hey, we're going to just talk through this. And not just talk like and just ramble. No. But it was, hey, this is what's going on, but daddy's got you. And then being able to readdress at that time, then not more often than not, it was still 50-50 because a lot of it is long-term approach of her seeing me show up. Hey, I'm here. Hey, I'm here. But after those weeks of trying to get her to jump off of her bed, because I just wanted to build trust with her, then at the end of that week, it wasn't always in that time frame because there's many times we had to take an L. Oh, yeah. But within the time frame of however long it took to see the victory and me not getting mad about the losses, because I view them as losses, whether I should or shouldn't. Right. As a parent, I want to build that as early as I can. So that's kind of how those two ways I've dealt with it.
Yeah, and those are the classic ways, both the healthy and the unhealthy ways we deal with our own emotions. That first one, like when you said the bad way that you would deal with your daughter's emotions, the frustration, like, okay, if it's my own emotion, oh crap, here's the nervousness again. Like, here we go again. Like, why can't I get rid of this? Dang. Well, that's going to make my emotions worse because
I deal with her better than I deal with myself.
There we go.
What am I doing?
Free therapy right here.
Appreciate it. Keep going. Keep feeding. Jeez.
And that's because we're all like that. You know, we want to get past whatever the unpleasant thing is. And so, of course, we want the quickest way out. And we think it's just by blasting through. So I'll tell you a quick story. My niece,
please share.
When my niece was 2 years old, we were all at the beach. And I love going in the ocean, just body surfing and all that.
Yeah.
Well, to a 2-year-old, the ocean looks like a freaking monster.
Oh, for sure.
It's noisy, it's moving, it's massive. So anytime I would head to the ocean, my poor little niece would start crying because she thought I was literally going to the monster and let it eat me.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, as I was walking to the ocean, I had basically three options while she was crying. I thought I could ignore her.
Yep.
If I ignore her, she's going to cry louder because she thinks that she's helping me. Mm-hmm. I could turn around and yell at her for crying. We know how that would end. Not gonna go well. So I thought, all right, both of those would backfire, even though I think like my instinct would be that those would work. But my third option was walk up to her, pick her up, bring her in close. And you know, when a little kid starts to stop crying, they move from crying to then there's exactly. So
you might have been around a few kids in your day. That's so real.
So when I felt her start to do that I knew stuff was starting to release. It wasn't like she just stopped crying immediately, because that's just not how we work. But I could tell, all right, we're moving from like threat level red to yellow. So as I held her close and she started to calm down, then I could use my words. Because at first I had to just use touch to make her know that she was safe. Then when she was at least a little calmer, I said, thank you. I know you're trying to help, you know, and as best I could say this to a 2-year-old, but like, I said, I'm going to have so much fun in the ocean.
But it's so crazy, their perception though. They're definitely a present.
Yeah.
Sorry, but
exactly. But yeah, best I could, I let her know I'm about to go have fun. I know it seems scary and I promise I'm coming back. And then, you know, you'll see me all wet and you can throw sand at me. Just kind of let her know what was going to happen after that. So that's how our emotions work. We have to actually bring them in and bring them close and let them know, like, I hear you. Because if as long as they know we hear them, then they're at least willing to be like, okay, let's talk.
Okay.
But if we just continue to be like, no, you're the enemy, they're thinking, no, I'm actually helping and you're going to listen and I'll take you down no matter what it takes to get you to listen.
Interesting. Well, I've just been schooled on some parenting tips, so I appreciate it.
There you go. Unintended parenting tips.
So thank you. Gosh, so that's just crazy, because I just think about the movement part of it, like going and addressing it, hugging it, but I guess like when it's unknown, when you, I guess that in my mind kind of brings about why community is so important. Where the people that have been there, you can seek the counsel, talk to them, and figure it out. Yep. So the fear of the unknown and the scariness of it. What would you say to somebody that has never dealt with the unknown, or that's going into the unknown, that really has nobody to have the maturity of whatever the emotion actually is? Because obviously I'm about to pivot, guys. I'm about to pivot in regards to the actual archery side of things. But like for the people that, like me, don't have people that have done archery at a high level, of when the stakes are really high, when there's 30, 50, 80 grand on the line, like when you don't have those people to talk to about what they felt, a lot of times it's just, hey, I just need to get this experience. But for me, it's hard to get the experience when you're not around other people, and then also just don't have a lot of opportunity because you're running a business, working a job, parent, husband, most importantly, follower of Christ, still trying to impact other people's lives. Like, there's a lot of things going on in life where it's like, I can't just go to every tournament to build up my tolerance. So like, how would you encourage somebody to build up a tolerance in those environments to where, dude, you're about to deal with something that's going to cause a lot of anxiety, going to cause a lot of angst. Are there any pre-practices that you would encourage somebody to do? how would you go about counseling somebody in that?
The fascinating thing for this question is that our brains have a really hard time telling what's imagined and what's real. So visualization is key.
Okay, Ralph Alderman. That's my dad.
Is that
He used to
one
say
of his
this
things?
all the time. Keep going. I'm listening. This is interesting. Keep feeding me.
So like, think about if you watch a scary movie, you know logically this is happening on a screen. It's not really happening in real life, but you can still feel your heart beating and something in your body wanting to like run or fight or something. And you're like, wait, what is happening? Like two things are going on at once. I know this is fake, but yet something in me thinks it's real. And so you can use that to your advantage to say, okay, let's take archery, for example. You can just do mental reps and close your eyes and put yourself in that scene and make it as vivid as you possibly can. Like as many sights, sounds, senses, touches, whatever. Put yourself in that movie scene to where you're literally drawing back every second. You're living through it. And just, if you can make it vivid enough in your imagination, you'll start to feel whatever, whether it's butterflies in your stomach or...
And then you get to deal with the reality, so it's not a shock to the system.
Exactly. Or, if you're sitting in your kitchen, just pick up your bow and close your eyes and put yourself in whatever the competition environment's going to be while you're physically touching your bow. And you're just creating the reality as best you can. And you're still going to have to deal with that part of your brain that says this is fake.
Yeah.
But you can still start to, it's not going to be instant, but you can start to train yourself to know okay, I can do mental reps.
Like dry fire with your gun.
Yeah.
Like going through your reps, dry fire where it creates good habits. That's physical, but then creating the mental way to navigate the emotions. Yeah. So that I actually wanted to show you something. Just so you get the idea of what archers are shooting at. Because I think a lot of people might see the colors and then see the big shapes of what people are aiming at.
Right.
So this is what would be like a Vegas face. You're shooting 10 total rounds at 3 arrows, and then you're trying to shoot, a lot of guys, especially at today's game, they're trying to shoot a 30x game. The way it's scored, you have the inside, the outside, this is X10. Both of these are considered the same, depending on where you shoot. Like Lancaster is like a big tournament in the area, or not in the area, but a big tournament worldwide that actually counts that as an 11. But everything kind of works out.
Yep.
Good shooters, like high-level shooters, will hit this with one of these from 20 yards away.
It's incredible.
Over and over and over again. So
Just
they're
like
trying they're trying to hit each one of these 30 times. I say that and I show you that to kind of give a framework for you in the brain, because I heard the idea of movement and being able to get to that person and then hug it and deal with it.
Yeah.
One thing I did, so just to give a framework, because this is me definitely stealing. Like this is personally for me, I'm trying to figure out how to deal with my own personal emotions, because as a football player, I was able to use those heightened emotions and use them to physically exert them onto somebody. So it actually in some ways was a benefit that I was a high energy guy. A lot of guys, you'll hear like a Levi Morgan, very high level guy. Goodness gracious, the Hammer, I can't remember, Tim Gillingham, a guy that they talk about their personality types and how they interact and interfere with the types of archery they like to compete in. Because you also have 3D outside where you shoot one arrow and you kind of work around in a circle, but you're shooting at different ranges, but it's a little bit more like strategy and game oriented, whereas this is just be perfect. And they talk about different personality types and how they benefit different types of games.
Yep.
But I still am in the process of trying to master me. So I want to do good at both of those. I don't want my personality type to hinder me. But going into my last tournament, where we had the big show out, I actually did a video that kind of highlights it. It's the Shootout Series local tournament. They do a really cool job of setting the environment. They have lights flashing, music blaring. You'll hear like anywhere from hip hop to heavy metal to just crazy, and they actually had people in the stands behind you, about like probably on average about 150 people behind you, and for a local shoot, that's a pretty big deal, especially when it comes down to archery, where most tournaments will have 15 guys there, and most of them are just the shooters that are about to be up next.
Right.
Whereas this still had the family people there. And I bring that up is because the way that I dealt with my emotions in the environment, because I didn't want my emotions to negatively affect me, I swallowed it. So like I buried it to try to numb out as much as I could, so I did not let my miss, and then I start shaking even worse. So but with that, there's parts of me that look back at that and feel like I could have used my emotions possibly more to my benefit, because I wasn't very present when I buried it. Like I couldn't see my target when I looked into my binos. I looked down once during my warm-up round, and I then ended up like, oh, wow, I can't rely on my brother because he was actually spotting for me. But I could not get back into the headspace that was just like, I see it, I need to make these adjustments. I couldn't make the adjustment once I buried it, but I was afraid to let out those emotions, to feel like I normally might feel in that environment. Because I was like, yo, I just want to be the level-headed guy. Everybody always talks about like shaking and jittering. I'm like, bro, I can conquer my brain. Like, I don't have to be jittery.
Right.
But I feel like I almost overcorrected. What is your counsel for me in that environment? Like, what would have been a better approach so I can still be present, make the necessary adjustments of my shooting form, identifying what's happening in my hand, so that I don't shoot a bunch of 10s, like what we just talked about, still small target, but not the one that I needed to hit. And I missed a 9, which was very odd for me when I'm only shooting a few arrows that I was doing. So like, what do you have any counsel for me there?
So number one, you actually did really good work. You probably don't even realize it, because most people, they're not even able to take over their emotions and be in charge of them. Okay. So like you made it to the next level, and emotions.
Super Saiyan 1.
Exactly.
I'll take it. But I need to get to blue. So how do I get there?
Well, so anytime, whatever we praise gets repeated. So praise yourself for doing what you did, because most people end up helpless and they're just at the mercy of their emotions. And emotions, they make great soldiers, but they don't make good generals. So when they take over as the general, it's usually not good. So you did great by becoming the general and turning them into the soldiers.
Thank you for that.
So now your next step is take the soldiers and put them to work instead of just put them in the locker room. So I mixed my metaphors, but whatever.
No, but that's good though. I'm tracking. All of it's still making sense.
So the next step would then be not during any kind of competition, because you did what I would tell anybody to do in a competition, and that is.
What's up, RJ? Come here.
All right.
Okay.
We get a guest.
Oh yeah, definitely don't come here then. Thank you. Can you close the door and go hang out with mommy?
We weren't ready for that kind of
conversation. Nah, that's all right.
I love it. So yeah, in a competition, most people, they wouldn't have been able to do what you did. So you did great by being able to switch in the moment and take charge and just stuff them. So that's better than nothing. Next step.
Better than nothing. I'll take it.
Exactly. Next step would be in your downtime away from a competition, start to figure out, okay, like what were those emotions that I stuffed? What were they afraid was going to happen? Because that's the next step. If I'm in a one-on-one conversation, if once we figured out what that emotion is and we found that in your body.
Yeah, because I skipped the third.
No, there's tons of steps you would go through, but I'm trying to keep it as basic as I can. You figure out like what's that emotion afraid that's actually going to happen. Like if there's probably something irrational, like the emotion might be, well, if I miss the 10, then everybody's going to laugh at me, or I'm going to be a failure, or whatever the fear is. You got to figure out like, okay, what is the actual outcome it's afraid that's going to happen?
Interesting.
And then usually, and this is where it can get deep, usually whatever it's afraid of is often something that actually did happen in our younger years, or it's something that we were told by somebody else. It usually connects back to something from the past.
That's interesting.
It's just letting the silence linger.
Yes.
So what ends up happening is we realize that the self-talk came in there for a reason. Usually from age 0 to 10, because that's when our brains are most changeable and most impressionable. And a lot of the self-talk has its roots in those first 10 years. So we can figure out, okay, I'm dealing with this thought now of like, I'm doubting myself, or I'm afraid of failing, whatever. So I got to figure out like, how old was I when I first noticed that thought starting to creep in? And then that's where you start to do some of the kind of the healing and the changing work.
Because you're looking at it now.
Yeah, because the deal is whatever you're dealing with in a moment is really just the leaf on a tree. And you can cut the leaves off a tree.
Keep going, keep going.
Yeah, you can cut the leaves off of a tree, but eventually those leaves are going to come back. Just like when you stuff the emotions, that works for the moment, but eventually you're going to have to do something about the root of the tree. And that's usually those first few years of life.
Interesting.
Am I making it make sense?
That's definitely making it make sense. I don't want to just run past it like you didn't just say anything. Like that's a lot. That's
right.
it. And the one thing that keeps on kind of ringing in my ear is like, just from like the everyday person, me trying to process that, I'm just like, well, why is it so important to identify the timeline though? Like, why not? Why does it have to go there? What's so important about that?
Again, without getting too geeky, our brain.
I like the geeky.
So our nervous system, which is where a lot of these thoughts and emotions come from, it doesn't know time.
Okay.
So you're how old?
32.
I
just turned 32 this year. Oh yeah, baby.
No, it's gonna stump you. So you're 32, but the parts of your brain that the emotions are coming from, they think you're 3 and 9 all at the same time and 32 all at the same time. It doesn't know.
It kind of stunts you, and that's why people will be like, I'm emotionally this in this area.
Yeah, there's parts of us
because
that still
they
need to
didn't
grow.
allow it to mature or work through.
Well, and then usually it's
that-
not their fault. Usually something will happen to where that part of us gets kind of frozen in time. It's not like we just purposely made it get stuck.
Okay.
But it's in there and it's stuck, and we got to go back to that part and then basically let it out so that it can grow up.
Interesting.
I'm using language that it's called internal family systems, IFS.
Internal family systems.
And it's the most, I don't know, it's kind of sweeping the country right now in the therapy world because it's helping so many people.
Yeah, it's practical.
You ever heard of the movie Inside Out?
I love those movies.
It's that. So
those are so well done.
exactly.
So well done. Like even in my limited psychology, the one class I took in college, I was like, dude, I might have picked the wrong field. I'm not gonna lie.
Yes.
It's our brains are just so interesting.
Yeah.
So like with that, right? So if I'm going back to being on the line, so I'm on the line, I miss and I identify. Are there practical tools? So we've talked about the reality of working through and building up your framework to identify the issues and then being able to work through them so your body's a little bit more used to it, kind of physically and mentally working out the brain is kind of how I'm categorizing that in my head.
Yeah.
But then it comes down to the sports performance side.
Right.
So like, how do you take all of what you've equipped yourself with and not crap the bed, even though it might only be your second competition, big competition. And you're like, I want to be the guy that did it at the beginning, not when I was later on in my years.
Yeah.
So like, how do you, especially with a guy that's limited time like me, I don't have a bunch of years left. Like a lot of these guys are doing this from their 7. I started when I was 29, 28. And so like, with all of that, trying to play catch up, and not having a lot of backlog, when I'm inside of the field, like from my world, from sports, it would be like, hey, start thinking about your breathing or whatever. But practically, from a professional, what are some things that you equip guys with?
Yeah. I'll give you 4 things, and then you and whoever's watching can figure out which one of the 4 might work best for them.
Okay, so it's not everything for everybody. It's just some. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
That's the mistake some people will make is they'll think, all right, well, this worked for that guy. I'm gonna try and it didn't work for me. Well, I must be messed up or I must be broken. Like, no, try something that works for your brain. You know, it's like you would pick an exercise that might not work best for me, that works great for somebody else, but then you would tailor the workout to fit my body the best, right?
Because the end result is what matters, not the process on how you got there.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So I always start with breathing because that's what works for the most amount of people. Yeah. And you got to breathe in such a way that you're sending the air to your stomach. Because if you're trying to make yourself nervous on purpose, you want to breathe to your lungs. Yeah. Yeah. So like if you want to make yourself uncomfortable in the moment, just breathe shallow to your lungs about 10 times.
And that makes asthma guys way worse. Too,
yeah.
Because I think they can't get it there rather than just
So send the air to your lungs. A lot of times if you want to, you can put your hand on your stomach and just And you're going to watch your hand rise and fall to make sure you're getting the air there. So
visual.
and there's other types of breathing. You can look those up. One of my favorites is you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold it for 6 seconds, and then you let it out for 7 seconds.
I saw that in one of your videos, actually, one of your shorts. That was good. I when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's like a HIIT training.
Yeah.
Where we'll do like 5 seconds on really, really hard and then 30 seconds off. So that connects with me.
Yeah.
Cool.
So and the long out breath is really what does the calming down. So like breathing in and holding is key also, but like even more key is the long out breath.
Interesting. I want to ask why that is, but
I don't know.
So it's just a thing. It just is a phenomenon that's occurring.
I'm sure some physiologist, whatever, could answer that question, but I don't know.
Okay, cool. I
have a feeling it's that you're having to hold your diaphragm in such a way that the air is basically activating your vagus nerve, which is the whole idea of breathing is it touches this thing in the spine called the vagus nerve, and the vagus nerve is responsible for telling your brain to calm down. So when you slowly let the air out, I have a feeling that vagus nerve is probably getting the most activation from that. That's just my guess.
Keeping it squeezed.
So breathing is always the first one I try to tell people. The next one is do something physical that's different, because if you don't change your body, you're not going to change your brain.
Okay.
If I'm still sitting in the same position and I'm trying to change my thought, it's going to be like arm wrestling myself. But if I stand up and then say something different, try to change the channel in my brain realizes like, oh, he just stood up, something's different. So if you're standing still after you just had a bad shot,
because you don't get to move, and that makes sense for like some of those like high intense guys that they don't like standing on the line because you're stuck on the line. So like, would you say like kind of pivot or put your bow down and just bow over even after a bad shot, or like what is that?
You try whatever works for you. And so like a pitcher, they don't have a whole lot of space to move around.
You're in that framework.
Yeah, so a lot of times you'll watch them, if they've thrown 2 or 3 bad pitches in a row, they'll take a walk. They'll stay generally on the dirt of the mound, but they're not on the top. They just kind of walk their circle around the mound. And it's just something, whatever it takes to let your brain know like, hey, something's different. You could even wear some sort of rubber band and snap it.
Oh, that's why speakers will sometimes use. Okay, I've heard of that before.
Yeah.
Just the shock to get is that like trying to get you back in the present?
Yeah, just a reset button.
Yeah.
Just a reset button. Because we can get so into our heads of like, oh crap, I just missed that shot. What now? Like, all right, snap. All right, now, new thing right here in the moment. What's next? That's another, like, so that's, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but
you're good. That's two.
That's two.
Yeah.
Another one is sing a song in your head or count. Something that's going to just put your brain in kind of autopilot mode, because any kind of athletic event, if we're thinking too much, we're cooked.
Exactly.
And
you're stepping behind every single time.
Yeah, so have a song in your head that you're literally singing, and okay, I'm drawing the bow back, I'm singing, like that way I can't overthink about every little detail in my
lost
technique.
in your process.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and then finally, just have one word, maybe 2 words tops, but something simple that's gonna, you pick whatever's most meaningful for you, but it could be calm, it could be whatever. Just have one word that you can pull your brain back gently, so when it starts to run all over these what if scenarios, just say, okay, let's say it's a rubber band, or if I'm pulling my ear or whatever, and then I say my word, like, okay, I'm gonna just keep repeating that word. That functions the same way as like singing a song or counting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. So there's a guy, I made reference to him earlier, Joel Turner, and then there's another lady I was listening to. She shoots for Lancaster, shoots a traditional recurve, not traditional, she shoots like the Olympic style recurve. I can't remember her name, beyond the point, but there's a big thing that goes around inside of archery that's called shot process. And I'm gonna walk you through like what some people might do, because you said one word. And this is why it brought me to this, but a lot of guys are like, keep it simple but hit your checkpoints. At least that's how I've summarized it in my head. They don't always say that. Some people will have an extremely long process, but a Joel Turner will say, get your setup, draw, get your aim done, and then walk through a burning house. Because if you get bit too quick through that process, then you're going to do what he would encourage and say is not accurate or not consistent, which is punching the trigger. So it's the idea of when you have the thumb, just like if you're on the gun, you shot guns before.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like you shoot from the reset for accuracy.
Yeah.
Guys that are punching are off the trigger and just going just going. Now, that's not actually tangibly how punching operates inside of archery. Some people are able to punch under control because they're telling it when to go, versus the walking through the burning house is you just get to the back door whenever you get there, meaning the shot breaks because you're just trying to apply steady pressure into the trigger and then letting it fight. And so he talks about the idea of a long, at least this is what I've seen on the free stuff. I've never actually bought his stuff, but he has a lot of free content out there that just talks about working through the process and just, he says, like, draw out. I guess this actually does make sense. This still does line up because he says go through all those processes and get set, and then figure out your word or saying that you bring out. That's what the lady did, because she just says draw, pop. And then it goes.
Yeah.
So it kind of does the same idea. She pulls it out because of how long it'd take to activate her shot. I feel like, if I remember correctly, Joel Turner, and I'm sure somebody will correct me if this actually goes anywhere, but I feel like it was a little bit more like say this, say this, say this, because he says like know what to say. At the appropriate time to say it.
Oh, yeah.
So it sounds like a little bit more of a step-by-step approach from a psychiatrist, not psychiatrist, goodness gracious, from a therapist, from the mental game side of things.
Right.
What are your thoughts on which one of those sounds a little bit easier? It sounds like you would kind of relate a little bit more to the lady. I wish I could remember her name right now. Really, literally like the number one traditional lady right now.
Right.
In regards to the recurve, there's some other high-level people, but do you see a difference in between the two? Do you think one might work more than the other, or does it kind of fall in that same category of, hey, whatever floats your boat, these are just processes that they're giving, and use whichever one works both?
Try them both, because ultimately they're trying to just put you in the moment as much as possible.
Yes.
Because especially like, I don't forget the guy's name.
Joel Turner.
So Joel, he has more steps in his process, but each of those steps is meant to keep you right in the moment.
Yes.
And it's the same idea, no matter what the sport is, whatever, if you can focus on your technique that you need right there in the moment, I don't care how you get there. Okay. So whether it's the one word that she was saying to draw out, she's keeping you in the moment for whatever that technique, part of that technique is, his process, it's really just the same idea. You're just taking a different route to get to what technique do I need right here in this particular second? In that moment, that second. And when I work with baseball players, if they're, I don't know, in the field, I say, all right, what's one part of your technique in the field you need the most work with? And they say, well, sometimes I don't get my glove down quick enough. I'm like, okay, let's just have your two words be glove down. Okay. And then a lot of times your whole body will follow that. Like if you know this from a physical standpoint, wherever you look, your body's gonna go. And I'm sure it works that way in archery. If I'm looking at the wrong thing, I'm probably gonna have, my body's gonna do different things. But if I tell my hand glove down, well, my feet are actually gonna get wider, my back and my butt's gonna get lower. I don't have to tell my feet and back to do all that.
And that's what practice is for too, right?
Yeah.
So you have the good habits.
Yeah. So I have a feeling.
The process.
Right. I have a feeling with all of his steps and with her word, it's like I focus on this one thing that I need to do this second, and then move to that next thing. My body, the rest of my body parts will follow suit. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. And now that I'm even reflecting on it, because I didn't even plan to bring those two up, but I think when I think back on her video when she was talking through her shot process, I think she had a few more steps along the way as well. It was just when she got to the end of that journey, into the mental journey, and then just resetting it. And then what did that feel like? If I remember correctly, she analyzes that last shot quickly and gives like a one word, good, bad, too quick, or whatever, and then resets, and then goes right back into her process and just works it like a machine. Yeah. So cool.
Yeah, just be as much of a machine.
I love
minimize the words as much as you can, because somebody like you and me, we can really overanalyze.
Oh my gosh, of course. You know me for sure.
I'm the same way. So whatever helps us just keep it simple to the actual bare bones of what we need in that moment.
Dude, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Dude, I appreciate your time, seriously.
You're awesome.
If you guys made it this far, great. But even if you didn't, I know I got a wealth of knowledge, seriously. So, man, where can we find you? I know we talked about a little bit of your socials at the beginning, but I like to actually say it. I'll also link a lot of his videos, or I'll say a lot of his videos, his pages inside the actual captions. But where can we find you? The people that want to connect a little bit more to you. And then I also know you do some stuff for the youth, obviously with what we do, and you kind of highlight some of the youth. So even just relationships, you kind of touch on some of those things, and not to really draw too much into those specific topics, but where can we find you so that people that might be interested in your mental game or mental approach to life, but then also dealing with relationships or whatever, where do they find you?
Rugged Counseling on every platform.
Okay.
So whether it's TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Substack, I don't even know what else is out there, but it's just Rugged Counseling is the main line on
Rugged Counseling.
So try to keep it simple.
Awesome. I love it.
Just like we were talking about.
I love it. I appreciate that, man. But yeah, again, this is Trey Tucker, really great guy. Appreciate your time.
Right back at you, brother.
Thank you so much. You guys remember to be better one day at a time in whatever you are doing. And William Alderman and Trey Tucker, we're out. Peace. Dude, thank you so much. That was really freaking good.